I want to talk to you today about overcoming weariness. We all go through seasons where we feel drained, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. We've been believing, standing strong, praying, doing the right thing, but nothing seems to be changing. That's when weariness tries to set in. It whispers, "You're not making a difference. It's never going to work out. You might as well give up." But here's the key. Just because you feel weary doesn't mean you have to live weary. God didn't create you to barely make it through life, dragging around discouraged and defeated. He said, "You will run and not grow weary, walk and not faint." When life wears you down, when the weight feels long, when the pressure seems heavy, you've got to tap into a supernatural strength, a divine energy that goes beyond your own. You weren't meant to carry that load alone. There's power in His presence, rest in His promises, and strength in your stillness. You may feel tired right now, but weariness is not your identity. It's just a feeling, and feelings don't have the final say. There's something powerful that happens when you realize the finish line is not as far as it feels. Sometimes what wears us out the most isn't the actual journey. It's the illusion that nothing is changing. You've been praying, believing, doing the right thing, yet it looks like you're stuck in the same place. That voice starts to whisper, "What's the point? It's never going to happen." But just because you can't see the progress doesn't mean progress isn't being made. You may not feel it, but in the unseen, something is shifting, something is moving. Breakthroughs don't always make announcements. Doors don't always creak open. You just walk into them one day and realize they were unlocked. This is why weariness is so deceptive. It never attacks when things are exciting, when momentum is strong. It comes when you've been faithful and haven't seen results. That's when it tries to settle in. It doesn't show up as a loud scream. It comes subtly as apathy, as exhaustion, as "I'm just tired." Or maybe I was wrong to believe this. But many times those feelings come right before a shift. You were never supposed to be guided by what you feel. You were created to be guided by what you know. And what you know is that every step you've taken in obedience has been building something. Every seed you've sown in faith has been growing under the surface. It may not have sprouted yet, but it's closer to the surface than it's ever been. In those moments when you feel most worn down, most tempted to stop, that's often a signal. Not that something is going wrong, but that something is about to break loose. If you could see how close you are, you wouldn't even entertain quitting. If you knew the connections that are being made, the doors being prepared, the favor that's being lined up, you'd rise up with fresh strength. But because it's hidden, you have to choose to trust. That's where real maturity kicks in. Not in celebrating when the blessing shows up, but in staying faithful before it does. We often think of weariness as weakness, but in reality, it's a sign you've been enduring. It means you've been pressing on despite not having all the answers. You've stayed faithful through uncertainty. That doesn't make you weak. Strong. But even the strongest get tired. Even the most faithful feel depleted. That's why Scripture reminds us not to get tired of doing the right thing. Because there's a due season, and it's coming. If there's a due season, then what you're doing isn't in vain. There's a harvest attached to your effort. There's a return on what you've been pouring out. Think about how many people gave up one prayer too soon, one day too early. They were on the edge of the breakthrough, but because they couldn't see it, they walked away. That won't be your story. You're not someone who backs down just because the road is long. You've come too far to stop now. You didn't make it through all those storms just to give up in the calm. What you're carrying is too important, and your assignment is too valuable to let weariness win. Sometimes the final stretch is the hardest. That last lap can feel like the longest. But that's not the time to quit. That's the time to dig deeper. That's the time to remind yourself why you started, who you're doing this for, what's waiting on the other side. That's when you speak over yourself. I will not faint. I will not grow weary. I will see this through. You don't need all the details to keep going. You just need the determination to say, I didn't come this far to... It may look the same on the outside, but that doesn't mean nothing is happening. The walls of Jericho didn't fall until the seventh day, after they had marched in silence again and again. Imagine if they had given up on day 6. No visible results, no sign of progress, just obedience. And then suddenly on the 7th time around, the walls came down. That's what your story may look like. You've been circling the promise, walking in faith, sowing in silence, but you don't realize the next lap might be the last one. When it feels hardest to praise, that's when you praise louder. When it feels easiest to give up, that's when you hold your ground. You're not forgotten. You're not unseen. You're not spinning your wheels. Every act of obedience, every step of faith, every tear cried in private, it's been counted. You've been gaining more ground than you realize. So take a deep breath. Rest if you must, but don't quit. You're not failing. You're being fortified. You're not losing. You're lasting. And the beautiful thing is, the weariness won't last, but the reward will. The heaviness may come and go, but the harvest is permanent. You're closer than you've ever been. Keep walking, keep believing, keep standing. Because the promise isn't ahead of you someday. It's right around the corner. When you're feeling worn out, one of the most powerful things you can do is learn how to be still. Not still in the sense of doing nothing, but still in your spirit, calm in your mind, settled in your emotions, at peace deep down, even when everything around you feels chaotic. There's a strength that doesn't come from striving, but from quiet confidence. It's the kind of strength that's not visible to others, but it's what carries you through the hardest days. We're trained to think that hustle equals progress, that movement equals power. But some of the greatest strength is found when you step back, take your hands off the situation, and simply rest in the assurance that you are not alone and that you don't have to figure it all out. It's tempting to think that if you're not constantly pushing, working, doing, then things will fall apart. But the truth is, your effort isn't what sustains your destiny. There are times when the most courageous thing you can do is stop trying to control every outcome and simply lean into peace. When you're exhausted, when the pressure is high, when your emotions are all over the place, that's not the time to push harder. That's the time to anchor yourself deeper. Not in your own understanding, not in the way you hoped things would go, but in the quiet, unshakable confidence that something greater is at work behind the scenes. Stillness doesn't mean weakness. It means you've matured to a place where you don't need external evidence to have internal peace. You don't have to see the answer to rest in the assurance. You don't have to hear the yes to walk like it's already done. Stillness is not about inactivity. It's about stability. It's the difference between reacting to everything that comes your way and being grounded no matter what comes. It's where you stop panicking and start trusting. Where you stop worrying in faith. Think about a tree in the middle of a storm. The wind is whipping. The rain is pouring. But the tree doesn't move. Not because the storm isn't real, but because its roots run deep. That's the kind of stillness that gives you strength. You can be in the middle of a situation that should break you, and yet, here you are. Still standing, still believing, still calm in the middle of the chaos. That's not just your personality. That's divine strength showing up in your soul. Sometimes we think we have to say more, do more, But often, the breakthrough comes after the silence. Not when you said all the right things, but when you chose to be silent and trust. Not when you fought with your hands, but when you lifted them in surrender. That's where real strength is. When you stop trying to win the battle in your own power and allow peace to take the lead. Peace isn't passive. Peace is a weapon. It confuses the enemy. It calms the storm and it recenters your focus. There's a kind of strength that doesn't show up in noise. It's found in stillness. Not everything needs a reaction. Not every storm requires your voice. Sometimes your silence is louder than anything you could say. When you stop letting circumstances dictate your peace, you become unshakable. The storm may rage, but it doesn't own you. The challenge may show up, but it doesn't change your posture. That's strength. That's endurance. That's victory without shouting. That's power without needing to prove a point. There are things you're waiting on, answers, direction, open doors. And you might be tempted to think, if I just do more, it'll happen faster. But the truth is, some breakthroughs only come when you pause, when you get quiet enough to hear the whisper, when you slow down enough to notice what's already been given. You don't need to wear yourself out trying to make things happen. What's meant for you won't require you to live constantly stressed, constantly striving. It will find you at peace, not in panic. It will come to the version of you who settled, not the version of you who scattered. Even Jesus took time to withdraw and be alone, to find stillness and strength before he stepped back into the crowds. If he needed those moments, how much more do we? There's a place in your spirit where the pressure can't reach, where the noise of the world dies down and the voice of truth becomes clear again. That's where you regain your strength, not from a podcast, not from another strategy, but from stillness, from resting, not quitting, from waiting, not worrying. So if you're feeling weary today, don't think the answer is always to do more. Sometimes the answer is to stop, breathe, and reset. To shut out the voices that say, you're behind or not doing enough, and replace them with the truth, I am enough. I'm exactly where I need to be. I don't have to prove anything. I can rest and still be in progress. You don't have to run to keep up. You don't have to strive to stay ahead. There's strength in simply being. There's power in stillness. There's momentum in peace. And when you move from that place, you move with purpose. You move with clarity. You move with renewed energy that isn't your own, from the well that never runs dry. Sometimes, when life feels heavy and you're tired from carrying the weight of responsibilities, setbacks and delays, the mind starts looking for escape. It begins to say, maybe it's not worth it. Maybe I should just walk away. Maybe this isn't what I was meant to do after all. But those thoughts don't come from a place of clarity. They come from exhaustion. It's hard to make the right decision when your spirit is depleted, when your emotions are running on empty. It's easy to confuse frustration with finality. But before you throw away what you were born to build, pause. Before you walk off the path that you've been called to walk, wait. You might not need a new mission. You might just need a renewed spirit. What looks like failure is often fatigue in disguise. And what seems like the end might just be a moment for rest, not retreat. You don't have to start over. You don't have to abandon the dream. You just need to be filled again. You need time to refuel, to step back, not to quit, but to breathe. Even the strongest people need moments of refreshing. Even the most faithful get drained. It's not a sign that you're weak. It's a sign that you've been giving your all, but you were never meant to run on empty. You were never created to do it all in your own strength. There's grace for every assignment, but there's also grace for your recovery. Before you make that big decision, get quiet. Before you tell yourself it's over, get renewed. Most of the time, what we need is not a change in direction, it's a change in perspective. And when your spirit is dry, your perspective becomes distorted. You start questioning things that used to be clear. You doubt what you once had peace about. That's not clarity talking. That's fatigue speaking. That's why it's so important to let your spirit catch up with your schedule. You can't keep pouring into others while neglecting what's inside you. If your soul is depleted, your vision will become cloudy. You'll start talking yourself out of things that are still meant for you. Sometimes you don't need a new plan. You need a deeper rest. Not just sleep, not just a day off, but a real pause. A moment where you remind yourself why you started, where you let go of the weight you've been carrying and inviting the strength that doesn't come from caffeine or adrenaline, but from purpose, from presence, from knowing you're not carrying. In that stillness, in that space of restoration, new strength rises, new peace settles in, new clarity comes. And suddenly what felt impossible yesterday now feels manageable. What you were about to quit becomes something you're recommitted. Don't the situation changed, but because you changed on the inside. Even great people hit low points. Even bold, courageous people feel like giving up sometimes. That doesn't make you weak, it makes you human. But the difference between those who finish the race and those who don't isn't that they never felt weary. It's that they didn't make permanent decisions in temporary frustration. They knew how to pause, how to rest, how to breathe again, and then they got back up and kept going. That's strength. That's wisdom. That's how you sustain your mission over the long run. You can't fulfill a lifelong calling on short-term energy. You need spiritual stamina. And that comes not from doing more, but from slowing down long enough to receive. You may be doing all the right things, but if your heart is worn down, it will start to feel wrong. Not because it is, but because you're running on fumes. Don't judge your future through the lens of fatigue. Don't evaluate your calling while you're emotionally depleted. That's like trying to see through a dirty window and then deciding the view isn't worth it. Clean the window first. Refresh your soul, then look again. You'll see things clearer. You'll realize you were never off course. You just needed to be recharged. Sometimes the enemy doesn't try to destroy your calling. He just tries to drain your energy. Because if he can exhaust you, he knows you'll start backing away from what's yours. That's why protecting your spirit's so important. You can be brilliant, talented, called, and even anointed. But if you don't take time to refill, you'll burn out before you reach the finish. That's not weak. That's the reality of being human. And the beautiful thing is, you don't have to fix it all at once. One moment of stillness, one moment of peace, one deep breath in the presence of God can change everything. It doesn't take long, it just takes intention. You're not here by accident. The path you're walking matters. The dream in your heart still has life. Get refreshed. Let go of the burden that isn't yours to carry. Stop trying to be everything to everyone, and be kind to yourself. You're not falling behind. You're getting restored. You're not failing. You're being refilled. And when your spirit gets its strength back, you'll realize what you thought was the end was actually just a moment to pause, to breathe, to rise again. This isn't the end of your mission. It's just the beginning of a stronger you. There are moments in life when things just don't make sense. You've done your best. You've walked in integrity. You've trusted when it was hard. And yet the door didn't open. The relationship didn't work. The opportunity didn't last. It's human nature to want answers, to ask why, to search for the reason. But sometimes the greatest test isn't in the hardship itself. It's in the silence that follows. It's when your heart cries out for understanding and heaven seems quiet. That's when faith shows its strength. Not when everything's clear, but when nothing is, and you keep moving forward anyway. Too often we pause our progress waiting for perfect clarity. We say things like, I'll take the next step once I know how it ends. Or I'll trust again when it makes sense. But life rarely works that way. Some of the most powerful breakthroughs happen not when you understand everything, but when you choose to trust in the middle of confusion. The journey of faith was never promised to be easy. It was promised to be worth it. You don't have to see the whole map to take the next step. Sometimes the most important move you'll ever make is the one you make in the dark. There's a kind of strength that's born when you walk through mystery without losing your peace. When you say, I don't understand this pain, but I'm not going to get bitter. I don't understand this delay, but I'm still going to praise. I don't know why that door closed, but I believe something better is ahead. That's when you stop relying on what's visible and start depending on what's eternal. You stop needing evidence and start leaning into expectation. It's not that the questions go away. It's that you no longer let them control your spirit. Understanding is comforting, but it's not always necessary. Sometimes God will withhold the reason because if you knew the answer, you might not keep going. You might overthink it. You might try to change the path. You might get discouraged by what's still ahead. So He protects you with mystery. He covers you with silence, not to punish you, but to prepare you. When you don't understand and still move forward, something powerful happens inside you. You build a deeper level of trust. You strengthen your resilience. You show that your obedience isn't dependent on convenience. If you're honest, the seasons that grew you the most weren't the ones you could explain. They were the ones where you had to walk by faith. You didn't see how it would work out. You kept going. You didn't have all the answers, but you showed up. And now, looking back, you can say, no, I didn't get it at the time, but I'm glad I didn't stop. I'm grateful, because there was a greater plan at work. And had you waited for full understanding, you would have missed what was meant for you. Sometimes the greatest progress happens after the most confusing detours. You thought you were on one path, but it shifted. You thought the door would open, but it stayed closed. And now you're in unfamiliar territory, feeling like you took a wrong turn. But what if this path isn't a detour? What if you're not behind? You're just being rerouted. What looks like a step back may be setting you up for something greater. But you won't see it if you're paralyzed by confusion. You have to move before you understand. You trust before it makes sense. That's what faith is. Think of a seed buried in the soil. It's dark, hidden, surrounded by pressure, and yet growth is happening. The seed doesn't understand the process, but that doesn't stop it from breaking through the ground. That's what you're doing. You're breaking through things you can't even name. You're growing in silence. You're pushing forward in faith. And one day soon, what was hidden will be seen. What was confusing will be clear. But don't wait for that moment to be faithful. Be faithful now. Be faithful in the unknown. Be faithful when you don't have the answer. There's freedom in letting go of the need to know. It doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop controlling. You stop trying to force understanding and start walking in peace. You say, may not know how, but I know who. I may not see the way, but I know I'm being guided. Now that shift changes everything. Because when you release the need to figure it all out, you receive the strength to endure. You don't have to waste energy replaying the disappointment, analyzing every detail, or asking questions that have no answers. You can rest. You can breathe. You can trust that what you're walking through isn't wasted. So if you're in a place right now where nothing makes sense, keep going. if you're tired of waiting, tired of wondering, tired of trying to explain what you don't understand, don't let that stop your momentum. What you don't see is often more powerful than what you do. There are things working together for your good, even if you can't explain how. There are doors opening behind the curtain. There are answers forming in silence, but you have to walk through this moment before you get to that one. The road may not be clear. The outcome may be uncertain, but your steps are ordered. Your path is guided, and your future is secure, and not because you understand it, but because you trust the one who does. Keep walking. Keep believing, even in the dark, especially in the dark. Because that's where miracles often begin. There are situations in life that no matter how hard you try, you just can't fix. You've done everything you know to do. You've talked it through. You've stayed up late thinking about it. You've prayed, cried, hoped, worked, and still, the problem remains. That's when it's easy to feel powerless. It's easy to feel like something must be wrong with you. Maybe if you just said the right thing, did the right thing, pushed a little harder, tried a little longer, maybe then it would change. But there are moments when your strength reaches its limit, when your wisdom isn't enough, when your efforts hit a wall. And that's not a sign of failure. That's the moment when grace steps in. It's one thing to fight for what you believe in. It's another thing to carry a weight you were never meant to bear. Some battles are not yours to win. They're meant to be released. There's freedom in recognizing that you don't have to fix everything. You don't have to be the answer for everyone. You don't have to hold the world together with your bare hands, because there is one who sees what you don't see, who knows what you don't know, who's working in ways you can't even imagine. And when you finally lay it down, when you stop wrestling with what's beyond you, that's when peace enters. That's when solutions start rising, not from your striving, but from your surrender. Sometimes we confuse control with responsibility. We think if we let go, we're being careless or passive. But letting go doesn't mean giving up. It means making room for something greater. It means stepping aside so divine strength can take the lead. You're not abandoning the situation. You're releasing the illusion that it's all up to you. There's a kind of power that only shows up when you stop trying to manage every outcome. And when you give that situation, whatever it is, a child, a dream, a relationship, financial burden, over to a higher hand, it doesn't fall apart. It falls into place. You've done your part. You've prayed. You've spoken in love. You've given your best. And that's enough. Now, let what you can't change rest in hands bigger than yours. It may not happen on your time. It may not unfold the way you picture. But it will be handled in a way that brings peace and purpose. Something your own strength couldn't produce. You weren't created to carry the full weight of every broken piece. Some things are too big for you because they were never meant to be yours to carry. That doesn't mean you're weak. It means you're wise enough to know where your strength ends and where divine help begins. It's not easy to let go, especially when you care. When it's your child who's lost their way, your business that's struggling, your heart that's breaking, it feels like stepping back is the same as giving up. But there's a difference between stepping back and giving up. One is rooted in hopelessness. The other is rooted in trust. Trust says, I can't change this, but I know the one who can. Trust says, I may not be in control, but I'm not out of option. Trust doesn't mean you stop caring, it means you stop controlling. There's a peace that comes when you stop fighting the wrong fight. When you stop trying to convince people who don't want to change. When you stop trying to force an outcome that was never yours to orchestrate. That peace may not come with answers. It may not come with immediate resolution. But it will come with strength, with clarity, and with the kind of rest that striving never brings. Some victories only come through surrender. Some walls don't fall until you stop banging on them and start walking around them silent. Remember, not every burden was meant for your back. Some were designed to lift your eyes, to remind you that you're not alone in this. That while you may not have the solution, you have access to the one who does. And he's not watching from a distance. He's involved, active, present. He's working while you're resting. Fighting while you're worshiping. Fixing what you can't reach. And he's not limited by time, people, or circumstances. What seems impossible to you is nothing to him. That situation that's been keeping you up at night, that relationship that feels beyond repair, that mountain that won't move, it's not bigger than the one who spoke the mountains into existence. You don't have to prove your strength by holding it all together. You don't have to validate your worth by fixing what's broken. What makes you strong is knowing when to fight and when to rest, when to speak and when to be silent, when to act and when to trust. And some of the strongest decisions you'll ever make won't look like power. They'll look like surrender. Like saying, I've done what I can. Now it's in better hands. When you do that, when you truly let go, don't be surprised if things start changing. Not always overnight, not always the way you expected, but they will shift. The pressure will lift, the peace will return. And you'll realize you weren't losing the battle, you were learning to fight the right way. Pressure is something we all face, especially when we're trying to grow, to lead, to step into something greater. It shows up in the form of deadlines, responsibilities, expectations, decisions, and even in the weight of waiting for things to change. And while pressure can feel uncomfortable, overwhelming even, it's often a sign that something is being formed inside of you. It's easy to resent pressure, to wish it away, to say, if only this would ease up, then I could breathe again. But what if that very tension, that very heaviness you're feeling is doing something sacred in your life? What if it's not just there to transform you? The most valuable things in life don't develop in comfort. Diamonds form under intense pressure. Gold is refined by fire. Olive oil is produced by crushing. And in the same way, you're calling your strength, your resilience, they're being shaped by what you're walking through. Pressure is not punishment. It's preparation. It's proof that something important is being worked out in you, through you, and even around you. You may feel stretched, pushed way down, but you're also being molded, matured, and strengthened. If everything was always easy, you wouldn't grow. If there were never delays, never resistance, never wait, you wouldn't discover what's really in you. It's in the tension that your endurance gets built. It's in the fire that your faith gets solidified. While nobody asks for pressure, once you understand that it has a purpose, you stop fighting it and start flowing with it. You stop resenting it and start respecting what it's doing in your life. Oh, pressure can feel unfair. You look around and wonder why some people seem to be walking through life without as much resistance, while you're carrying weight they can't even see. But you're not being overlooked, you're being entrusted. People don't pressure what's not valuable. The fact that you're under pressure is often a sign that you've been chosen to carry something greater. That vision, that calling, that influence, it comes with weight. But with the weight also comes the grace to carry it. You might not feel strong enough, qualified enough, or ready. But pressure isn't about how you feel, it's about what's being produced. And in the moments when it feels like too much, when the weight feels unbearable, that's not the time to back down. That's the time to lean in. Because there's more inside you than you know. You've been equipped for what you're carrying, even if you can't see it yet. And the very thing that feels like it's pressing you down may be the thing that lifts you up. Sometimes pressure will expose what needs to be healed. It will bring to the surface things you didn't even know were there. Fears, insecurities, pride, impatience. And that's not to shame you. It's to free you. It's to purify what's impure, to strengthen what's weak, and to align what's been off course. It's uncomfortable, but it's necessary. And on the other side of it, you'll walk lighter, wiser, and with a clarity you didn't have before. There's something about pressure that teaches you to depend on strength beyond yourself. When everything's easy, it's tempting to rely on your own skill, your own knowledge, your own timing. But when the pressure shows up, you realize you need something greater. You begin to lean into divine strength. You pray differently. You listen more closely. You learn how to rest even when things aren't resolved. And that intimacy, that closeness, that inner maturity, it doesn't come without pressure. You're not being crushed. You're being cultivated. You're not being buried. You're being planted. And what's forming inside of you right now is not just for this season. It's for where you're going. It's for what you'll carry in the future. That patience you're developing, you'll need it when the door opens. That humility being shaped, it'll protect you when the spotlight comes. That strength you are building in private, it'll hold you steady in public. So don't rush the process. Don't despise the pressure. Let it do its work. Let it shape you into the person who can hold what you've been praying for. And here's the beautiful truth. Pressure won't last forever. But the results will. The peace that's being formed, the endurance that's being strengthened, the character that's being built, those are permanent. The season you're in may feel heavy, but it's not wasted. It's meaningful. It's making something new out of you. And when you come out of it, you won't be the same. You'll be stronger, deeper, and more prepared than ever before. So if you're in a season where the pressure is on, don't panic. You're not doing something wrong. You're being prepared for something right. You're not falling apart. You're falling into place. And the same pressure that's making you feel stretched is also pushing you towards your next level. Keep going. Keep trusting. You're not just surviving this. You're becoming through this. Maybe today you're feeling tired. Tired of waiting. Tired of believing. Tired of being strong for everybody else. Maybe you've smiled through the struggle, praised through the pressure, and kept going, even when no one saw the fight it took just to show up. I want to remind you, you're not alone. You're not forgotten. And you are not at the end. You are simply in a season where something greater is being developed inside of you. You may be weary, but you're not weak. You're still standing. You're still hoping. You're still showing up with grace. And that's not a small thing. That's victory in itself. The tiredness you feel is not a sign that something is wrong. It's often a sign that you've been doing something right. You've stayed in the fight when it would have been easier to walk away. You've held on to hope when it would have been easier to settle. That doesn't make you broken. That makes you brave. There's a fresh wind coming to your life. New strength is rising even now. You're not running on empty. You're being filled back up. The heaviness is lifting. Confusion is clearing. And where you felt stuck, you're about to see movement. Where you felt forgotten, favor is about to find you again. This is not where your story ends. It's where your spirit is renewed. It's where the pressure gives way to power. It's where weariness turns into worship. Don't give up in the middle of the process. Don't let the tiredness convince you to quit something you were born to finish. You are closer than you think. You are stronger than you feel. And the best part is, you don't have to do it alone. When you feel like you can't take another step, grace will carry you. When you feel like you've hit your limit, strength will rise. You were made for more than survival. You were made to overcome. So walk out of the weariness and into a new strength. Rest in the truth that you are held, guided and destined for more. Your joy is coming back. Your clarity is returning. Your momentum is building. This is your reminder. You are not finished, and God is not done. The same power that brought you this far will take you all the way. Keep your head up, keep your heart full, keep your faith strong. The pressure is real, but so is the promise. And if you won't quit, you will overcome.